Alright, easy there, people. Easy there, people. Alright. Oh. How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we send Daf Test, Daf 9 of Masechta Gittin. Friends, today we have Mamash Geshmaka Daf. Such a Geshmaka Daf that I'm actually going to record it in 2 goes, I think, because it would require a lot of koyach and time in order to do it in 1 go. And it's Thursday afternoon and I got stuff to do, so I'm going to do it in 2 goes so we can give proper attention to the full daf, because it's a very geshmaka daf. So, so right now we're going to start off discussing the sugya of Palginon Dibura, a marvelous sugya about splitting up what somebody says. Very interesting sugya, so we'll just jump in. I think that there's a high likelihood of noise outside, which of course is not my preference, but they didn't ask me, unfortunately. If they asked me, I would have told them not to make noise, but they didn't ask me. So okay, I'm just gonna have to deal with it. They should ask. Just ask, and I'll tell you. All right. Maybe they don't ask because they don't wanna know the answer. All right, so we're going to start on Daf Chesamud Beis, about halfway through the Amud at the 2 dots. Friends, you ready for some Geshmaka stuff? All right, here we go. Tana Rabbanan, the Rabbi start. Eved she'evi gito, or nechasu bo atzmucho nechasai knuin lecha, atzmo kana nechasim lo kana. Gewaldig. Oh, so I think it's come up before. It must have come up before that the same halachis. Truth is, that's kind of what the next Mishnah is about. The shtickle, the next few Mishnahs, that we basically compare Gittin Noshim and a get isha and a get shichur, a divorce document for a woman and a freedom document for an eved. We know that, I think, where did we learn? I can't remember where we learned the comparison of an eved to an isha, because it says law, right? It says v'chos of law, sefer krisos, and also it says v'chuvsha lo nitan law by a shivcha charufa. Anyways, so we compare Gittin Noshim and get isha and get shichur, and we know that a woman can deliver her own get and bring it to Beis Din and say b'fanei nechtam, and likewise an eved can bring his own get shichur, his own freedom document, and say b'fanei nechtam as well. Now the case over here is a very interesting one. It's a case where the document does not only say you go free, it says another thing in there as well, which is all of my stuff goes to you. Yeah, there's just enough noise going on outside to bother me. Shnikes, wait, give me a second. Yeah. Today's Jerusalem Day. So on Jerusalem Day, the whole country comes to Jerusalem and makes noise. So, it's the minhag. So, I'll go upon him. Alright, what do you want me to tell you? So I just need to focus, and I gotta say, I know you're coming to bother me, but I'm not gonna let you. We're gonna protest, and Babylon Talmud is gonna say, leave us alone. Make noise somewhere else. Alright. Anyways. So I gotta focus. So we have this document that Taka says 2 things. It says, on the one hand, that the eved goes free. And it says, on the other hand, that all of the property of the owner is being transferred to the eved. Now the thing is, the eved is coming with this document, and he's saying, b'fanei nichtav b'fanei nechtam. Now, b'fanei nichtav b'fanei nechtam is something that works by get isha. It's something that works by get shichur. It's not something that works by regular documents, right? If I show up in Beis Din with a document that says that Cham Yankel gave me all of his property, and I say b'fanei nichtav b'fanei nechtam, Beis Din says get lost. Find 2 witnesses who could be Mekayim the Shtar, and then we could talk. But you can't just say b'fanei nichtav on random financial matters. It's limited to get isha and get shichur. Now this eved is coming to Beis Din with a document, and while him saying b'fanei nechtam works for the get shichur, for becoming a free person, it does not work in order to take possession of all the property of the owner. So the question is, here it is, in this case, we have it all combined into one document. We have one document that says two things, one of which he has the koyach to say b'fanei nechtam and to be believed, the other of which he does not. So that's the shaila. So says the Gemara Tanu Rabbanon, the rabbis taught, Eved she'evi gito, an Eved who brought his own get shichur, but v'chasuv bo, it says atzmucha, it says that you unechasai, and additionally all of my property knuyin licha are now yours, right? So you are yours, you're no longer an Eved, you're free, and also all my property goes to you. Atzmo kana, okay, so he is now a free person because he says b'fanei nechtam on his get shichur, nechasim lo kana, but he does not take ownership of the property of the owner because b'fanei nechtam does not work for a document transferring property. Okay, fine. Ibailu de'asa kasha. Kol nechasai knuyin licha mahu. What if the document did not say atzmicha unechasai knuyin licha? What it said was kol nechasai knuyin licha. The Eved comes with a document that says that all of my property is now yours. Now the Eved is his property. So he's saying that all of my property is now yours, including you, including yourself. You are now yours. You're free. So Ibaylu Ze'asa Kasha, Kol Nechasai Knuyin Lecha Mau. If the document says that all of my property, ostensibly including you, are now yours. Oh, there's people cheering outside. Somebody must have been giving a very inspiring speech, or any speech at all. But from the cheers, it sounded like it was inspirational. Hopefully they'll get the heck out of here. Unfortunately, what are they doing out there? I don't know. Alright, what am I going to tell you? They're making so much noise. Alright. That's a kasha. So if the shtar says that all of my property is yours, mau. Abai says Abai mitoch shekona atzmo kona nechosim. So says Abai, you hear that? You hear what Abai says? No, I'm not talking about did you hear the people outside. Do you hear what the Gemara is saying? Mitoch shekona atzmo kona nechosim. Abai says that, well, because when he says b'fanei nechtam, it works for himself. So not only does it work for himself, it now also works for the property of the owner. He now owns all the property of the owner. Amalei Rava says to Abaye, Bishlama atzmo liknei. Okay, I understand why it works, why he's free. Because just like a woman is believed to say b'fanei nechtam on her own get, an Eved is believed to say b'fanei nechtam on his own get shichur. Fine. But Ela Nechosim, Lo Liknei, Mididava Kiyum Shtar is the Alma. But he should not be able to get all of the property of the owner. For that, he would need a proper Kiyum Shtaris. B'fanei nechtam will not suffice. Hadar Amar Abai, so Abai then changed his tune, and he says, Punkt Fakert, Mitoch Shelo Kona Nechosim, because he's unable to be Kona the Nechosim, the property, because b'fanei nechtam won't work for the property. Lo kana atzmo, he does not even acquire himself. He does not go free. Amalei Rava says to Abai, b'shlomo nechosim lo liknei. I understand why he can't be kona the nechosim. Mididava kiyum shtar is dama, because you would have to do a proper kiyum shtar. So you can't just say b'fanei nechtam for the property of the owner. Ella atzmo liknei mididava getisha. But I don't understand, says Rava. He should be able to go free. Just like a woman is believed to say b'fanei nechtam on her own get isha, so an Eved is oichet believed to say b'fanei nechtam on his own get shichur. So he should go free. So Elo Amar Rava, rather Rava argues on Abai and he says echod zeh v'echod zeh atzmo kana nechasim lo kana. Just like in the first case, when the owner says atzmucha unechasai knuyin lecha, that yourself as well as my property is now yours. So we say that the Eved goes free but does not get the property. So here also, when he says that all of my stuff goes to you, ostensibly including yourself, so while he would go free because he's believed to say b'fanei nechtam on himself, he would not get any of the property because does not work for, transferring property. Okay. So it sounds like a machlokas Abaye and Rove. Abaye says that, look, if the document is not going to work for the property, it won't work for the Eved either, for the Shechur. Whereas Rove says we could divide it up. We could say Balgina Dibur. We divide it up. We say, so while the document won't be able to work for transfership of the property of the owner, it will work as it gets Shechur and the Eved will go free. Amalei Ravada bar Masna the Rov, Snarvada bar Masna Taka says to Rov, Kiman Krib Shimon, ho, Domer Pagino Dibura, ho. So says Rav Ada bar Masna to Rov, so are you holding like Rib Shimon who says Palgino Dibura that we could divide up, the message? That, if it says you and the property, so he doesn't get the property, but he himself goes free, we could divide it up. The Tanan is, we learn in the Mishnah, HaKosev Kol, this is an interesting kind of Mishnah, a little bit detailed. HaKosev Kol Nechosov La'avdo, Yotze Ben Chorin. Okay, so the Tanakama, which we're going to see is Reb Meir. So Reb Meir says, it doesn't say Reb Meir, but the Gemara is going to call him Reb Meir. So let's say Reb Meir just so we could frame it in that way so that when we get to the Reb Meir later, we've been working with those names. The people Mamas went somewhere else. I'm very, very happy. So it's not a kosef kono chosef la'avdo. A fellow writes all of his property to his Eved. Yotze ben chorin. So the Eved goes free. Right? He wrote over all of his property to his Eved. His Eved is his property. Everything belongs to the Eved, including himself, including the Eved. So the Eved belongs to the Eved, but he goes free, betzim. Okay. Shia karka kolshu lo yotze ben chorin. However, if the owner said that everything I own goes to you, the Eved, but a shtickle property, a shtickle karka, a shtickle land doesn't go to you. Everything that I have goes to you. A shtickle land doesn't go to you. Says Reb Meir, lo yotze ben chorin. He does not go free. Because since he's leaving over a bit of his stuff, we assume that just like he's leaving over a bit of his land, he's also leaving over the Eved. The Eved does not go free. Reb Shimon, Omer says Reb Shimon, Le'olamu ben chorin. Reb Shimon says no, the Eved goes free. Ad sheyomar, until he says, Kol nechosai nisunin lefloni, that all of my property is given to Ploni Avdi, to my Eved, chutz mi echad meribo sheboin. Reb Shimon says that the only situation where the Eved would not go free is if the owner says that all of my stuff is going to you, my Eved, except for one fraction of my stuff. At that point, it's, if he's saying one fraction of his stuff doesn't go to the Eved, maybe that fraction is the Eved himself. So therefore, the Eved doesn't go free. But if he says, like the Tanakama says, that all of the stuff that I own goes to my Eved, but one piece of land, of karka, does not go to the Eved. We'll dig deeper in a second. But basically, the Eved is not land, so therefore the owner said that there's going to be a shtick of land that won't go to the Eved, but the Eved is not land, and the Eved goes to the Eved, i.e. the Eved goes free. And the interesting thing about Reb Shimon, I said we're going to dig a shtickle deeper now. The interesting thing about Reb Shimon, which doesn't say, it's not clear in the Mishnah, but Rashi kind of gives the context over here, is that Reb Shimon is saying that when the owner says that all of my stuff goes to my Eved, except for a shtickle land, that's regardless of if he specifies which land that does not go to the Eved, or if he just says, no, there's going to be a shtickle land that doesn't go to the Eved, but he doesn't say which one it is. And the nafkamina is, if the owner says, everything that I own goes to my Eved, except for this particular land, so that particular land won't go to the Eved. All the rest of his land and everything else that he owns will go to the Eved, and the Eved will additionally go free. Reb Shimon also says, though, that if he, meaning included in what Reb Shimon says when he says la'olam uben chorin, that he's going to be a free person in any event. That's even if the husband, that's even if the owner says that everything that I own goes to my eved, except for a little bit of property, of land. He doesn't say which land, he says some land. Well, in that case, the eved doesn't get any of the land because we don't know which land the owner was referring to, and any land that the eved would take, we would be concerned that, well, maybe that was the land that the owner was saying he doesn't get. So in that case, Reb Shimon is saying while he still goes free, he would not get any of the land because we don't know which land the owner was talking about when he says that a little bit of land doesn't go to the eved. So we see that Reb Shimon says Palgin and Dibur, right? We see that in the event where the owner had said that everything that I own goes to my eved except for a little bit of land, but he doesn't specify which land, so the eved can't get any of the land, but he does go free. So we see that we could so we could take the owner's statement of everything goes to the eved, including the eved himself, and the eved goes free, even if the eved is going to go free, but he's not going to be able to get any of the land. So we say we could divide up his statement and say, okay, this part applies, this part doesn't. So we see that according to Reb Shimon, we could say Palginon Dibur. We could say Palginon Dibur. We could say Palginon Dibur. Did you get that? Right, in the case according to Reb Shimon, where the eved would not go free, would be if the owner says that everything goes to the eved except for a fraction of what I own. Right, not meaning, if he says except for a little bit of land, well, the eved isn't land, so the eved can go free, he just may, depending on if he specifies which land or not, he may or may not be able to get any of the land. But if he says that everything goes to the eved except for a fraction of my everything that I own, well then maybe that fraction is the eved himself, and therefore the eved doesn't go free. Fine. So we see that according to Reb Shimon, we say Palginon Dibura. So, and this is why I'm going to do this daf in 2 sittings, because we're already almost 20 minutes into the daf, and we're like just getting to the top of Testament Aleph. So Rava had said that, so going back to the beginning of the daf today, So Rava had said that if a eved shows up with a document and it says that all of the owner writes in the document that all everything that I own goes to the eved, and the eved says so he's believed for himself. He goes free, but he doesn't get any of the property because he would have to do a proper kiyum shtaris. So we see. So now, so then said Rav Ada bar Masa to Rava. So it sounds like you hold like Reb Shimon, who says Palgin and Dibura. But Frekti Gemara, V'Omer of Yosef bar Manyomi, Omer of Nachman, but didn't Rav Yosef bar Manyomi say the name of Nachman? Afal pi shekiles Reb Yossi es Reb Shimon, that even though Reb Yossi praised Reb Shimon, halacha k'Reb Meir. Nonetheless, the halacha is like Reb Meir, and it's not like Reb Shimon. That when he says that all of my property goes to my eved except for a little bit of land, Reb Meir says that the eved does not go free. He doesn't get any of the land. The eved does not go free. So it sounds like we're saying that the halacha is not like Reb Shimon. We don't say Palgin and Dibur. Instead, it's like Reb Meir. The Tanya, as one in a brisa, right? Meaning we said Afal Pisha Kiles Reb Yossi es Reb Shimon, right? The Tanya is one in a brisa. Shenemru Dvarim Lefnei Reb Yossi, when the sugya was said over before Reb Yossi, Kara Olav Amikra Azeh, Reb Yossi said about Reb Shimon, Sfosayin Yishak Meishiv Dvarim Nechochim, that a person who says things that are proper, that are right, that are good, so he deserves a kiss. So we see that Reb Yossi praised Reb Shimon, but nonetheless, apparently, the halacha is not like Reb Shimon. But one second, did Rav Nachman really say that we don't say Palgin and Dibura? Does Rav Nachman really hold that we don't say Palgin and Dibura? Rav Yosef by Manyomi Rav Nachman, but Rav Yosef by Manyomi says the name of Rav Nachman, Shchiv Mira. Ho. Who can tell me what a Shchiv Mira is? Shchiv Mira is a fellow on his deathbed. Is matnas shchiv mira. a fellow on his deathbed, anything that he says goes, right? If he says, so shchiv mira shekosav kol nechosav le'avdo. So a shchiv mira who wrote over all of his stuff to his eved, ve'omad, but then he survived, right? He thought he was about to die, and he gave everything that he owned to his eved, and his eved was about to get everything. Ve'omad, but in the end, the fellow survived. And now he says, okay, well, I didn't think I was going to survive. Now that I survived, I actually don't want to give all my stuff to you. So choser bin achosim bin achoser be'eved. So he can get back everything except for his eved. The eved goes free, remains free. Choser bin achosim matnas shchiv mira hu. He can get back all of his stuff, because that's how the gift of a shchiv mira works. That if he survives, he can get it back. Ve'eno choser be'eved, but the eved remains free. Shariyatza olav shem ben chorin, because once he went free, he remains free. So we see that Rav Nachman says that in this case, the shchiv mira, this fellow said that everything goes to the slave, including himself, including all of his property, everything. But when he survived, we say, well, everything goes back to him, but the eved remains free. So we see Palgina Dibura, that we could divide it up. Some of it's going to remain the way it was, right? We're gonna remain with the eved, i.e., the eved himself remains with himself, with the eved, i.e., he remains free. But he gets everything else back. So we're dividing up his statement of everything goes to my eved, and now we're saying, well, part of it goes back to him, and part of it remains with the eved, i.e., the eved's freedom remains with his eved. So Rav Nachman apparently does hold of Palginon Dibura. Elomar Rav Ashi rather says Rav Ashi, Hosumainu Taime Mishum Delav Kros Gitu. Okay, so rather Rav Nachman does hold of Palginon Dibura. And when he says that the halacha is like Reb Meir regarding when the owner writes to the eved in the document that all of my stuff goes to you except for a little bit of property, of land, and in that case, Reb Meir had said that the eved does not go free, right? That if the owner says that the eved won't get some of the land, well then the eved doesn't go free. That's not because of Palginon Dibura. That's a different sugya. The reason there is because as I don't remember if it came up yet by Get Isha, but it has to be a krisus. It has to be a proper, definitive separation, right? And the concern is that if the owner says that everything goes to the eved except for a bit of property, a little bit of land, we're concerned that he's not really, but just like he's not giving him a bit of land, he's also not giving him his freedom. That, like, unless it's entire, unless it's complete, unless it's everything that I own goes to you, there's no questions about anything, everything is entirely going to the eved, well then in that case, definitely the eved goes free. But once already he's saying part of his property isn't going to the eved, it's not like it's not complete in the same way. Even though I guess he's saying that the eved's freedom is complete, but still I guess the package that he was receiving wasn't a complete package, and therefore we don't consider it to be a complete krisa, and therefore a complete krisus, and therefore the eved remains an eved. That was in that case, but it has nothing to do with Palginon Dibur. It has to do with, it's not a proper kros gita. It's not a proper complete separation. So the Mishnah had said way back at the beginning of the Masechta, the Mishnah had said that in Eretz Yisrael you don't need to say b'fanei nichtom b'fanei nechtom, and if anybody comes to say it's a forgery, so you'll be mekayim the shtar with the witnesses. Ir kama. Now, how many people are being ma'arer, are claiming that the get is a fake? If you're going to say one person is saying that the get is fake, Rav Yochanan says you have to have two people to be ma'arer. Okay, so two people are saying that the document is fake. But then it's 2 against 2. My choz is the samach ahani, smoch ahani. Why are you going to rely on, right? It's 2 against 2. Why rely on the challengers more so than on the Eidim signing the document? No, it's the husband. That if the husband comes and says that document is a fake, so then in Eretz Yisrael where they don't say b'fanei nichtam, b'fanei nechtam, so just find witnesses who can be mekayim the shtar, and then the shtar is valid. Oh, so now zok the Mishnah. Maybe a fellow brings a get from Medina Sayom to Eretz Yisrael. So we saw this the other day, Take, and he's not able to say b'fanei nichtam. The Gemara is going to ask what does it mean he's not able. We saw it the other day, Lemaisa. So if there are edim, so then you can just be miskayim b'chaysamov. Okay, Seder. So if he's unable to say so you can just find. Okay, so an alternative is to simply find witnesses who can be mekayim the who can say, yep, we recognize those signatures, they are valid. Beseder, it's a valid get. Fine. Echad Gittin Noshim ve'echad Shechuri Avodim. So now, Gittin Noshim and Shechuri Avodim, I feel like this has come up already. Shavu Lamolich V'Lamevi are similar when it comes to when you bring it from Eretz Yisrael to Chutz La'aretz. When you bring it from Chutz La'aretz to Eretz Yisrael, you say B'fonei nichtav u'B'fonei nechtam. V'zei achas min hadrachim sheshavu Gittin Noshim Shechuri Avodim. And this is one of the ways that Gittin Noshim are similar to Shechuri Avodim. We're going to see that there are other ways as well. And get Isha and get Shechur, there are commonalities between them. We learned this, right? That because of law may I think Shava of law. Oh yeah, of course, because I think we came up. I'm recording this next part of the daf the next day, so I think it actually came up earlier on the daf today. Okay, says the Gemara, "My eno yochol lomar pop. So when the Mishnah says that a fellow, we saw this already, that a fellow brings a get, he's a shaliach for a get, but he's unable to say b'fonei nichtam, b'fonei nechtam. What does it mean he's unable to say it? If you say, well, because he's a cheresh, right? He's somebody who's deaf, and we assume he's also deaf and also lacks intelligence. Cheresh bar asuya gitau is a cheresh, somebody who's capable of delivering a get. We learn in the Mishnah called akol ksherin lahavias a get. Anybody could deliver a get chutz mecheresh shoyte v'kotin, except for a cheresh, a shoyte, or a kotin. So a cheresh can't actually bring a get. So what does it mean he's unable to say b'fonei nichtam, b'fonei nechtam? Amar of Yosef says of Yosef, hachav ma'askin here. What are we talking about? Kigon she nisanu lak shu pikech. So no, he was not a cheresh. He was a shaliach who was delivering a get. He gives the get to the wife, and then and boom. Just like that, immediately after receiving the get, or after giving the get to the wife, the fellow, poof, becomes a cheresh. So now he can't say b'fonei nichtam, b'fonei nechtam. He's now a cheresh. So he can't say b'fonei nichtam, b'fonei nechtam. And so in that case, you can be mekayim it. Find people who recognize the witnesses, and you can be mekayim the shtar, and then that's fine. Okay. So now, pretty much, okay, there's people sunflowering outside a little bit. Okay, so we need to, what's the response to sunflowering? Oh, there's people coming down the stairs outside, so they're, being very friendly to each other at my expense. Like, oh, it was so good to see you, very nice, all right, litraot, that kind of stuff. Oh, they're yelling, because she's leaving, so she's downstairs, but I guess the neighbor's still upstairs, so they have to raise their voices in order to communicate to each other. Oh. Okay. People knew, keep it moving. The problem with this kind of interaction is, I feel like it could take a few minutes, So in the meantime, how do you counter sunflowering? If somebody's sunflowering outside, what do you do? There were people sunflowering this morning at 4 a.m. How do you counter a sunflower? Maybe it's like Yanki Lazar was saying, that you just have to not pay attention to it. Oh, they're gone, quick, before they come back. Okay. So basically until the next Mishnah, I think pretty much, we're going to be jumping into this next sugya, which it's not super difficult, but you got, it's Gittin, man. Friends, this is Masechta Gittin. It's Masechta Gittin. It's Yeshivish Masechta. It's not, it's not Sota. It's Masechta Gittin. So it's not, crazy, but you gotta put in the time. You gotta put in the work. So we said in the Mishnah that both by Get Isha and by Get Shichur, so you say before Nichtav, before Nechtam, we're going to see that there are other ways that they're similar as well. Now, Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, B'shlosha drachim shavu Gittin Noshim Shichur Avadim. I'm like borderline Babel yawning. I think I can push it off for now. So now, Tanu Rabbanan, B'shlosha drachim shavu Gittin Noshim Shichur Avadim. That says the Tanakama that there are three ways in which a get Isha is similar to Get Shichur. Number one, Shavla Molech Vela Maybe, as we saw in our Mishnah, that both by Get Shichur and by Get Isha, the messenger could say B'fanei Nichtav, B'fanei Nechtam, and then it's valid. V'chol get sheish olav eid kusi posel chutz migittin noshim v'shechuri avodim. That any get that when it says get, it means any document, right? As I mentioned on the first day of Masechta Gittin, a get doesn't, Get Isha and Get Shichur are types of Gittin, but a get be'etzim is just a document. So any document that one of the undersigned, one of the signatures, one of the signers. So if one of the signer is a nice word. If one of the signers is a kusi, so that's not acceptable. But chutz migitei noshim v'shechuri avodim. But by Get Shichur and by Get Isha, take one of the signers can be a kusi. Okay, fine. We're going to learn about that in tomorrow's daf. Okay, the next Mishnah. Okay, fine. Yeah, let me babble on 1 sec. Ooh, that was geschmack. All right, I'm back. Fine. V'chol ashtaris ha'olam be'arkos shel ovdei kochavim. Any document that comes from a non-Jewish court, from arkos, from a non-Jewish court system. Okay, so any kind of general documents that come from a non-Jewish, a secular court system, so it's kosher even if even if the signers are not Jewish, that it's a valid document. Except for Get Isha and Get Shichur. Those may not come from secular courts. Okay, so those are three ways in which Get Isha and Get Shichur are similar. Uchdivrei Reb Meir bar Ba, and Reb Meir says that it's not three cases, it's taka another case, a fourth case. What's the fourth case? Ha'omer tein get ze leishti v'shtar shichur ze le'avdi rotza lachzor b'shneim yachzor divrei Reb Meir. This is extremely interesting. Maybe I'll translate it first and then I'll explain it. That somebody who says, Tain, he says to a messenger, Tain get zeli ishti. Give this divorce document to my wife. Deliver it, right? Travel, go, deliver it to my wife. Ushtar shichur zel abdi. Or take this, get shichur and go and deliver it to my eved. Rotzo lachzor b'shneim yachzor. Reb Meir's opinion is that if at some point before the wife or before the eved receives the get shichur, the get isha, respectively, at any point before they receive it, before the messenger delivers it, the sender or the husband, the owner, would be able to cancel it. Would be able to say, "Wait, I'm calling it off. Don't deliver it." That's Reb Meir's opinion. This is a very, 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 very interesting thing, because it has to do with the concept of Zachin la'adam shelo b'fanav ve'ein chavin la'adam ela b'fanav. That you can merit, you can advantage somebody, you can benefit somebody even if they without their knowledge, not in front of them, but to work to somebody, to negatively affect somebody, so you can only do so with their knowledge. So for example, I think I was thinking earlier when I was reviewing that, for example, anybody could drop money into your bank account, right? If anybody who has your bank account number and your wiring information can just give you money, right? There's no like validation that needs to happen, because the assumption is that, nobody cares if you're going to dump money in your account, right? I can give you a bunch of money without you even knowing about it. If I have your bank details, I just put them in, I can give you a bunch of money, and that's fine. But to charge you, to take money, to request money from your account, that's already, I need you to know about that. No money's coming out of your account without your knowledge. So now how does this apply here? So if, for example, so we said that Reb Meir says that this is a fourth example, implying that the Chacham disagree with Reb Meir and say that this would not be a fourth example where get Isha and get Shichur are the same. So maybe let's start with the Chacham's opinion who disagree, because then we can get both sides. The Chacham's opinion is that while by get Isha, once I send it to to my wife, I don't have a wife, but you know what I mean, that let's just pretend in this example I do, but I don't. So by get Isha, right? If I were to, forget about me. By get Isha, if the husband were to send a shaliach to give the get to his wife, as long as before the message, right? Meaning as long as the messenger has not yet delivered the get to the wife, the husband can call up the shaliach and say, hey, don't do it. Stop. However, the Chachamim would say, by a get shichrur, I would not, right, the owner would not be able to do that. Once the owner gives the get shichrur to the shaliach to deliver it to the eved, the owner can no longer call it off. Why? What's the difference between get Isha and get Shichur? What's the difference between the context of the wife and the context of the Eved? Well, the difference is that the assumption is that it's detrimental to the wife to get divorced, that the wife would prefer that receiving this divorce document and getting divorced is a negative experience for her. That's the assumption. Whereas for the Eved, it's a positive experience, and he goes free. And therefore, we can contrast these two within the context of Zachin la'adam shelo b'fanav ve'ein chavin la'adam ela b'fanav. And therefore, how does this apply? It applies in an interesting way. Let's take the Eved first. So the assumption is that an Eved going free is a positive development for him, which means that when the husband gives the get shichrur to the shaliach, even though the Eved is some other place and the shaliach needs to now go and travel there and deliver it, the Eved has no clue that the owner is like writing this document and giving it to his shaliach. But because it's beneficial to the Eved, when the owner gives the get shichrur to the shaliach, upon receiving the get shichrur to deliver, can act as the representative of the Eved without the Eved's knowledge. He can act as the representative of the Eved to receive the get shichrur on his behalf, and he's now free from the time that the owner gave the get shichrur to the messenger to deliver it to the Eved. The messenger can also serve as the messenger of the Eved to receive it, and he's now receiving the get shichrur on behalf of the Eved, and the Eved is now free, even though the Eved has no clue that this is happening, because Zachin la'adam shelo b'fanav. That the messenger of the husband of the owner to deliver the get shichrur can also serve as the messenger of the Eved to receive the get shichrur, and from the time that he receives it from the owner to deliver it, he's receiving it on behalf of the Eved, and the Eved goes free. And for that reason, the owner can no longer say, wait, I changed my mind, because once the shaliach receives it, so then it's ki'ilu, he's receiving it on behalf of the Eved, and the owner can no longer change his mind. Contrast that with get Isha, where we assume that it's detrimental, or at least there's some kind of negative aspect or side to the woman getting divorced, which would mean, in this context, when the husband gives the get Isha to the messenger, we can't say that without the knowledge of the wife, the messenger now becomes her messenger as well, right? The messenger of the husband to send the get isha to the wife. We cannot say that without the knowledge of the wife, this messenger also becomes her messenger to receive it on her behalf, and that from the time that the messenger receives the get isha from the husband, she's divorced immediately. We don't say that because ein chavn adam ela b'fanav. This messenger of the husband cannot also turn around and be the messenger of the wife without her knowledge, since it's detrimental to her. And therefore, until the messenger arrives at the wife to the wife and delivers it to the wife, and she receives it, until that point she's not divorced. And therefore, at any point until she receives it, the husband can change his mind and call it off. Wow. So that's how, Zachin Adam Shelo B'fanav Ve'ein Chavn Adam Ela B'fanav plays into this. Now, where Reb Meir, however, disagrees, and he says that no, his opinion is that actually by the Eved going free, it's actually also detrimental. I'm not exactly sure why yet, but I think it's going to come up in the Gemara in the coming days. But Reb Meir says that no, both by get isha and by get shechur, it's negative for them, and therefore until they receive it, they're not right. The wife is not divorced, the eved is not free, and therefore the entire time until they receive it, the husband or the owner can retract. So that is why Reb Meir says that there are 4 examples that they are the same. Wow, this is why I divided up this daf into 2 days, because it's quite a bit of effort to explain this daf. It's not like so long of a daf in terms of words, but how much content, but it's rich. It's rich, it's thick. We have to really work through it. So Be'etzim Reb Meir says that there's a 4th case that get shechur and get isha are the same, and that is in both cases, according to Reb Meir, the husband or the owner can be choser before up until the point where it's been received. So now I understand the rabbis why they have to say that specifically, that there are 3 ways that get isha and get shechur are the same. 3 to the exclusion of 4th. Because after all, Reb Meir says there's a 4th, the Tanna Kama says no, it's 3. It's not 4. Right? So B'Shalom Rabbanon, I understand according to the rabbis, Minyana, how come it specifically says 3? Limute Hadu Reb Meir, to say, yeah, it's 3, it's not 4. Don't say like Reb Meir. El Reb Meir, but according to Reb Meir, Minyana Limute Mai, when it says 4 to the exclusion of a 5th, what would a potential 5th be? Limute Adatanya. Here's the potential 5th. Eidim she'ein yodim lachtom, that if you have witnesses who do not know how to sign. Let's say you have 2 people who witnessed an event, and now they want to be sign a document as witnesses, but they don't know they don't know how to write, so they don't know how to sign. So makarin loim niar cholok umimalim esakroyim diot. You hear that? It's a very interesting strategy. So what we could do is we can take the document and then take like a razor and kind of etch into the document the names of these witnesses who don't know how to write, and then they could fill in the etches. They could fill in, right, that which was etched out with the razor. They could fill it in with ink. And although they don't know how to sign a document, they do know how to fill in these etch marks, and that's their signature. When do we say that begite noshim? That's specifically by get isha, avol shechur avodim ushar kol ashtaris, but by get shechur and all other documents, im yodin likros vilachtom chosmin. If they know how to read and how to sign, then they can sign. Ve'im lav in chosmin. But if they don't, then they may not sign. Kriya man dechar shmei. In fact, the Gemara, who said anything about reading? All we care about is writing. It's missing some words. Say it like this: Eidim she'en yodin likros. So if you have witnesses who don't know how to read, korin lifneim, so we read the document to them. V'chosmin, and then they sign it. V'she'en yodin lachtom, and if they don't know how to sign, mikarin loim, we could etch out their names into the document, and they just fill it in with ink, and that is fine. It says Reb Shimon ben Gamliel that is specifically by Gittin, but not by Shechuri Avadim or other documents, and therefore we're saying that that Rameir says that there are 4 examples where they are the same, to the exclusion of this example where Gittin Noshim and Shechrui Avadim are not the same. So now for the rest of the daf, we're going to be trying to poke holes in this brisa and try to find other ways that Gittin Noshim and Shechrui Avadim are the same. V'suleka, there are only 3 or arguably 4. V'a'ika, what about the following? Ha'omer, a fellow says, Tnu get zet li'ishti, ushtar shichr zet la'avdi. A fellow who says, give this get isha to my wife, or give this shtar shichr to my eved. V'ames, but then he dies. Lo yitnu la'achar misa. Then once, when he dies, they haven't yet been delivered, so they can no longer be delivered. Tnu mana lefloni vames. But if he says, give some money to a certain fellow vames, and he dies, yidnu la'achar misa, you do give it even after misa. And Rashi points out, right, tnu mana lefloni v'chulei divrei shchiv mera kichsuvin v'chimsurin damu. So the assumption is that we're talking about somebody who's on his deathbed. So when it comes to, if he says give money, so then it's kichsuvin u'mesurin damu, right? So that's considered like it's done, and therefore we give that money even after he dies. But a document, on the other hand, if he dies and the document was not yet given, so then the transaction never happened, and the property goes to the heirs, and that's that. The document will never be delivered at that point. But if he says give money, so then you give it even after misa. Kikatoni. So 1 second. So wait. So what did so exactly? So we said haomer tnu get zel ishti v'shtar shichr zel avdi vames lo yitnu la'achar misa. So we see that in this way, get isha and get shichr are the same. That in both cases, if a fellow says, give a divorced document to my wife, or give a get shichr to my eved, and then he dies, in both of those cases, then you would not give it after the death. So they're the same in that way. So, and for the Gemara, kikatani milsa delese bishtaris. So the Gemara says, yeah, but that's not specific to get isha and shtar shichr and get shichr. That's really by all shtaris, by all documents. If a shchib meira says, give this document to somebody, and then he dies, you wouldn't end up giving that document. So that's not specific to get shichr and get isha. That's really a halacha by all documents. So milsa deise bish. Where am I? Kitani milsa deleise bishtaris. Milsa deise bishtaris lo katani. Right? But things that are by general halachas by all documents, we're not listing over here. Tishalach Ravin mishmei derababo, that Ravin sent in the name of Ababo, Havu Yodin, you should know, Sheshalach Rabbi Elazar L'Gola Mishum Rabbeinu, that Rabbi Elazar sent from Eretz Yisrael to, Chutz La'aretz, in the name of Rav. Interesting. Shchiv Meira Sha'amar, Kisvu Usnu, Manet Lefloni Vames, that if a Shchiv Meira says, write and give money to a certain fellow, and then he dies, Ein kosvin vinosnin, we don't write it and give it shemelo gomela knoso el b'shtai, because maybe the intention of the shchiv meira was only to give it with a document vein shtar lachar misa, and there are no documents after misa. So we see that it's a general rule by shtaris, not just by get shichr and get isha, but generally by shtaris. There's no shtar la'achar misa, and therefore, right, we just said, right, that Rabbi Elazar in the name of Rab, that shchiv meira sha'amar kisvu usnu, right, you didn't just say give money to so-and-so, he said write it down and give it, so, and then he dies, so we don't write it and give it because there's no get la'achar misa. So we see that this halacha is not specific to get isha and get shichr, it's really by all shtaris, and that's why it was not listed as one of the ways that get shichr and get isha are similar. Fine. Vayikal lishma. What about lishma? Both a get isha and a get shichr have to be written lishma. So in that way, they are similar. And for the Gemara, bishlam l'Rabba, so answers the Gemara, well, okay, so this take makes sense according to Rabba. Hanu malach umevi. Well, that, right? According to Rabba, the whole point of B'fanei nichtav b'fanei nechtam, which is B'etzem Molech Umevi that the Mishnah mentioned, right? What the Mishnah had mentioned, that Shtar Shichrur and Get Isha are similar by Molech Umevi, i.e. that you say B'fanei nichtav b'fanei nechtam, and according to Rabbah, B'fanei nichtav b'fanei nechtam is all about Lishma. Is all about Lishma. And therefore, so we're saying, yeah, what about the additional thing that Get Isha and Get Shichrur have to both be Lishma? Well, that's Be'etzim B'fanei nichtav b'fanei nechtam according to Rabbah. So that's why we don't need a separate entry for Lishma. Right? So B'shama l'Rabbah, Ainu Molech Umevi, Elo l'Rove, but according to Rove, Kasha. According to Rove, it's taka a good point. Shouldn't the Mishnah list Lishma, that both Get Isha and Get Shichrur need to be written Lishma? Visu, and more so, Bein l'Rabbah, Bein l'Rava, Ho'ika mechuber, ho. Both according to Rabbah and according to Rava, you cannot write a Get Isha or a Get Shichrur on something that's connected to the ground, as we learned the other day. It's v'chosav v'nosa, not v'chosav v'kotzatz v'nosa. So what about that similarity? That you can't write it on something connected to the ground. Ki katone psula d'Rabbanon de'oraisa lo katoni. Ho. Bum 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 param. Boom. Bum bum bum. Boom. Da da da. Answers the Gemara. If you look at the items in the Mishnah, the items in the Brisa, the similarities mentioned in the Brisa, those are D'Rabbanan. B'fanei nichtav b'fanei nechtam. That's D'Rabbanan. A kusi, not being able to sign on a regular document, Midrabbanan. The Gemara is about to ask, isn't Arkos Midoraisa? Beseder, we'll get there in a second. We'll actually see how it could be D'Rabbanan. So the Gemara answers, in the Brisa, when we mention the ways that Get Shichrur and Get Isha are similar, those are D'Rabbanan ways that they're similar. But Lishma and Mechuber Lakarka, those are D'Oraisas, right? Lishma, it says V'chosav La, Lishma. Mechuber Lakarka says V'chosav La, Sefer Krizus V'nosan Biyada, V'chosav V'nosan, nothing can be in between, those are D'Oraisas. So the Gemara answers, sure, maybe there are other similarities, but those similarities maybe are D'Oraisa. The Brisa was only mentioning similarities D'Rabbanan. But what about our kosh of the chovim vikatane? What about the secular courts where we said that by Get Isha and Get Shichrur you can't rely upon a secular court, and that's D'Oraisa. It says v'chosav v'nosan. Only somebody who's shaykh to nisina, to giving a get, is shaykh to writing it. So therefore that excludes secular courts. So that seems to be D'Oraisa, and it's included in the Brisa. So how can we say that the Brisa is only talking about the Rabbanons? Right, so again, where am I? V'ha arkos shall ovdei kochavim de psula de'oraisehu v'katone, and it's listed. So answer the Gemara, be'edei misira u'chor belazar. Wow. And for the Gemara, that it's like Rabbi Lazar. And for the Gemara, that the Brisa, the Tanakame, is like Rabbi Lazar. Bum bum bum, bum 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 bum, bum bum bum, bum. That when the Brisa mentions Arkos, meaning when we're saying that the Brisa is only talking about similarities Midrabbanan, when the Brisa is only talking about similarities Midrabbanan, and it mentions Arkos as a din D'Rabbanan, that's because the Brisa is assuming, like Rabbi Lazar, that Eidei Mesira Karted, like we learned the other day, and therefore you don't need Eidei Chasima, you don't need witnesses to sign the document, and therefore the requirement for witnesses to sign the document would only be Midrabbanan, right? The Isser against signing the document would only be Midrabbanan. Midoraisa, you don't need the document, you don't need, right? According to Rabbi Lazar, the witnesses are only for the Mesira. You don't need any witnesses to sign the document. And when we say that a document, a Get Shichrur, or a Get Isha that was signed by a secular court is Asr, it's also Midrabbanan, because Midoraisa you don't need right? There's no signatures Midoraisa. According to Rabbi Lazar, the Midoraisa, you don't need any signatures, and therefore those signatures, when we're saying that they're asur, if they come from a secular court, it would only be asur midirabanan, and therefore it fits into the assertion that the similarities mentioned in the brisa are derabanan in nature. So again, after the Gemara, be'edei mesira, the brisa is assuming that the edim necessary for the get are the edim mesira. Rabbi Lazar damer edim mesira karte, and like Rabbi Lazar says edim mesira karte, which means that the problem with using witnesses from a secular court is only midirabanan. So the brisa is indeed only talking about things, similarities midirabanan. V'amid Gittin seifa, but 1 second, the Gemara says 1 second. Is the brisa really talking about midirabanan? Is the brisa really talking about midirabanan? Is it really talking about midirabanan? V'amid Gittin seifa, but from the fact that it says later on, Reb Shimon Omer af elu ksherin, that's interesting. That from the fact that it says later on, that Reb Shimon says that even these are ksherim, right? Because so it's interesting. I guess it's because it's not quoting the brisa. It's the sefer of the brisa. It's talking about actually the Mishnah. The Mishnah on Yudam and Beis that talks about arkos. It's called Ashtaros Ha'olim Ba'arkos Shel Ovdei Chovim Alfa Pisha Chosmein Ovdei Chovim Ksherim Chutz Mikidei Nashim Shechur Avadim. Reb Shimon Omer Af Elu Ksherim. Reb Shimon says that even these are ksherim. Even these gittin that come from secular courts are ksherim. So it's interesting that's the sefer of the Mishnah, not the sefer of the brisa. But I guess maybe the point is that if Reb Shimon is right, the ratio of that Mishnah seems to be exactly the same as our brisa that says that mentions the v'chol git sheyesh v'chol shtaros ha'olim ba'arkos of the chavim al pisha chosmein of the chavim ksherin chutz mikidei nashim shechur avadim. I guess it's saying the same thing, and Reb Shimon is responding to that. So where am I? So from the fact that Reb Shimon says, Reb Shimon Omer af elu ksherin, that by arkos that the gittin that come from secular courts are ksherin. But Reb Zera says, Reb Zera yared Reb Shimon the shitasul shel Reb Lazar. That Reb Shimon is holding like Reb Lazar. That Eidei Mesira Karte, and therefore you don't need Eidei Chasima, you don't need witnesses to sign on the document, and therefore when Reb Shimon says that even Gittin Nashim and Shechur Avadim that come from secular courts are ksherin, it's because Reb Shimon holds like Reb Lazar, who says that you don't need Eidei Chasima, and therefore the document is fine even if there are secular people signed on it. Michlav the Tanakama sover lo, implying that the Tanakama is not holding like Rabbi Lazar. It sounds like the Tanakama is not holding like Rabbi Lazar. If the Tanakama is not holding like Rabbi Lazar, then mistama the signatures have to sign midoraisa, and we're saying that it's possible, so it's talking about midoraisa. And for the Gemara, Ika benayu shemis muvhakin. Boom. And for the Gemara, that actually the Tanakama and Reb Shimon both hold like Rabbi Lazar that Eidei Mesira Karte, and that you don't need signatures at all. And therefore, when we're saying that a document coming from secular courts, that a get isha, a get shichra coming from secular courts are no good, it's only midir abanan, because they all, both the Tanakam and Reb Shimon hold like Rabbi Lazar that you don't need the signatures at all, and any issue would only be also midir abanan. And when Reb Shimon says that it's kosher, it's talking about b'shemis muvhakin. It's talking about when the names are so obviously non-Jewish names. Because the only issue, right, the issue with these Gittin Nashim and Shechuri Avadim, right, if you hold like Rabbi Lazar, who says that the Eidei Chasima aren't necessary, the Eidei Mesira are what you need. So what's the problem with the Get Isha that comes from a secular court? At the end of the day, the signatures are unnecessary. So what's the problem? The problem is that we're concerned that if you see that the that these people signed the get, you might rely on them also as the Eidi Mesira, which is important, and that's a problem. So we say that, you can't use a get isha that comes from a secular court because out of concern that you might then rely upon those same witnesses for the Mesira, and that's a problem. So just don't use a get from a secular court. Reb Shimon says, but if the names on the document are so obviously not Jewish names, then you can use the document because you're not going to rely upon them as Eidei Mesira because it's clear that they're not Jewish, and therefore you would only rely upon Jewish witnesses for Eidei Mesira. So therefore, so says Reb Shimon that b'shemus mufakin, if it's obvious that these are non-Jewish names, so then the document would be valid. But both the Tana Kama and Reb Shimon agree that the halacha is like Reb Elazar, that Eidei Mesira karte, and therefore any issue with this get isha that comes from the secular courts would only be midarabon. Okay, fine. So we said that these similarities between get isha and get shichur listed in the brisa are similarities midarabonon. It didn't mention similarities midoraisa, and that is why it doesn't mention lishma. That is why it doesn't mention mechuber. Okay. Now, frek the Gemara. But what about, we said according to Reb Meir in that same brisa, right? So we mentioned the three similarities, right? The kutim, the arkos, and Reb Meir in that same brisa mentions a fourth example, chazare. Can you retract the shlichus? And that's midoraisa. V'chazare deoraisa v'katoni. Reb Meir mentions chazare. So the Gemara changes its strategy. They pivots. V'katoni elo ki katoni milsa de leisa b'kiddushin. Milsa de isa b'kiddushin lo katoni. So the Mishnah says, so the Gemara says that the Brisa is listing things that don't apply to kiddushin, that apply to gitei noshim, get shichrur. They don't apply to if you're mekadesh a woman b'shtar, right? There are three ways we're going to learn about sunesh in Masechta Kiddushin, right? There are three ways, right? Isha niknes b'shlosha drachim b'kesef b'shtar b'biyah. So one of the three ways to be mekadesh a woman is b'shtar, with a document. So so we're not mentioning things that are shaykh to kiddushin, right? Right? Kikatani milsa de leisa b'kiddushin. Those are the isa b'kiddushin lo katani. Things that also apply to a marriage document, right? Not a ksuba, but if you mekadesh with the shtar, so that was not listed. So something like lishma, the document has to be written lishma, or that it can't be mechuber lekarka, right? These are things that would apply to a marriage, a shtar kiddushin as well. Therefore, we didn't mention those. We only mention things that are not shaykh to shtar kiddushin. V'chazore gufa isa b'kiddushin. But what about chazor? Chazor is by kiddushin as well. If he wants, he could be chozer, right? He could tell the shaliach to stop and to come back. So answer to Gemara b'shlichus bal korcha the begerishin isa b'kiddushin leisa. Yes, but the example that we're talking about by chazor is when he's sending it against her will. He's sending the divorce document against her will, or they get shikra against the will of the eved. That's something that is not shaykh to kiddushin, right? You can't be mekadesh a woman against her will. You can't send her a shtar kiddushin against her will. That's not shaykh by kiddushin. But by gittin, he could send her a divorce document even if she doesn't want it. And he could send his eved a get shikhr even if he doesn't want it. So because we're talking about, and then the question is, can he be chozer or not? So because we're talking about a context which is bal korcha, right, against the will of the wife or against the will of the eved, which is something that's not shaykh to kiddushin. So therefore it's also, right, these are it's an example of something that does not apply to kiddushin, and that is why it is listed. Friends, that was the test of Masechta Gittin. That was I'm pretty sure that was, I don't know, it was definitely very close to an hour, if not an hour. I divided the recording into 2 days because it's very, very, took a lot of koich to also it was quite a lot. It was almost about a daf and a half. So what did we even discuss? Wow, we discussed so much on this daf. We talked about Palgina and Dibura. And do we say Palgina Dibura, for example, if an Eved shows up with a document that says that you go free, but also all my stuff belongs to you. So Abaye had said that it doesn't count for any. He's not free, doesn't get any property. Rava said that no, he's free, but it doesn't work for the property. And then we got into that sugya of Pagin and Dibura, and then we discussed the ways that they get shichrur and get isha are similar. We mentioned 3 similarities. We may add a 4th similarity, and we kind of probed around for other similarities. Very interesting stuff. Have a good day. Peace out.